Polaris came out with this 800cc engine. I think it was first like 650 or 700. It has carburetors, but with those you have fuel tap. It could flood the fuel tap and you can flood the engine, and you have to use choke. With this EFI version, you don't have fuel tap, you don't have choke, you don't have cold starting issues with choking or that, and it's overall better. And it's very simple EFI because it's like early motorcycle EFI. You don't have lambda sensors or anything like that. You just have throttle position, temperature and revolutions, and it just put it roughly enough fuel for that. So it's very, very reliable EFI system. The engine is parallel twin. Both pistons go up and down the same time, but of course Otto is on the exhaust stroke and another one is on the work stroke or compression stroke. And it has hydraulic tappets, so no need to adjust the valves. And the engine is separate from the gearbox, and also the rear end is separated. So you have 4 different oils. You have the demand drive, front diff oil, engine oil, transmission oil, and rear diff oil, which is like standard hypoid oil. The brakes are linked, so the front lever uses the front wheels and the back wheels, and the rear pedal uses only the rear wheels. You have this cargo box at the front, which is very good for handling. This one has even front hitch, and this was actually some sort of special model with these aluminum wheels and that kind of stuff. And this matte black is actually my favorite because I basically never wash it. It always looks pretty much the same. It's just matte black, and you with the scratches, matte black doesn't get scratches. Issues with this Polaris. The front diff is also classical Polaris issue because it's not like rear differential. It has this kind of plastic cage, and the plastic cage can get broken. There are sort of rollers here, and then you have this kind of metal plate that comes to the end of this. And when you want 4-wheel drive, this gets magnetized and it sort of breaks the cage. It connects the front wheels. Basically, if you keep, and it's best to keep this always at all-wheel drive. When you're driving straight, there's a little bit difference on the speed of the front and rear tires, so the rear ones go faster, and that's why the fronts are not engaging. But when the rear ones slip, the front comes on automatically, and that's very good because it makes it to oversteer always. If you give it more gas on like slippery surface, it's always oversteers. It's never understeers. So it's very good driving characteristics. I could add some videos about it here or to the end. The front suspension is very soft if you are using plow. So we made this kind of 1-inch. You can also get stiffer front springs, and these actually make the handling better because it's more like front high and rear piaset. I really like to drive with those, so I don't take them never off. And if we look under the saddle, we have battery here, airbox, snorkels are up to here. I have sometimes driven it so the wave goes over this and it still didn't flood it. Also every diff has tube to high here, and I think some of these lines come even to this pot, but they actually come high and go down, so you don't get water to the diffs very easily. You can take these off like this. The oil dipstick is very big because you fill the oil also through this. Oil filter is down there. It's good to use like K&N filter because you have that key on top of it. And if you can see, there's that kind of golden, is it hot now? Golden key, a nut there. And it's actually the oil pressure, which is sort of model issue with these. So there's oil pressure sensor, or there's spring and sort of plunger. And if that gets stuck from dirt in the oil, you can get low pressure or too high pressure. And if it goes low pressure, it could destroy your engine. And too high pressure, it could stop it because the hydraulic lifters sort of open the valves from the overpressure. So it's good to keep clean oil there. The variator alignment is very important. And that one, that rubber bung has to be in good condition so the engine will stay straight and the belt can work. So if those rubber things break, your belt is going to get destroyed quite easily. But I have used this in work very hard for many years, and I have never changed the belt. So it's quite reliable if those rubbers. This rubber failed last time, so I changed it. And you can buy this kind of standard rubbers, which are like 50-25 thick, M10. The original is a little bit different, but you can put M10 there. There are also behind the engine, there are a couple of those rubbers, and those are very hard to change. And when changing this one, you have to take it off the header. One problem I had is that there's this kind of breather thing. Those little screws come loose and it's going to blow oil over the engine. So follow those. Also the front suspension, these bolts, and on the front the same bolt, they get loose over time, so it's good to tighten those. Also I have changed these linkages, they get loose over time. But here is visible that it's a twin cylinder. Both cylinders have own exhaust pipes, but they join at the middle. Actually I have this kind of bottom protector, which is very nice. You don't get stuck over but it collects dirt, and that's why I have drilled big holes here, so the dirt would go, but it's always dirty above it. It has this kind of twin pipes both sides. Even it's one pipe here, but there's a middle pipe between these silencers, so you have twin exhaust. And there's the rear cardan axle to the rear, and the front starts there and goes. There's one oil grease nipple there. The rear diff is normal diff, but it has no differential, so it's like locked rear in this model. On later model it had that turf mode, and then there it is like rear really a differential. The tail hitch is this kind of small square tube. This hasn't broken, but my friend has that older 700 carbureted version, and it has broken here because of heavy loads. This has even this rear cheap €50 hitch with this kind of rope setup. It's a very strong puller. You can pull big locks and all kind of stuff. The meter is cracked, and if this gets water, the four-wheel drive doesn't work. So I have to keep like some bucket over this or keep it inside. The fuel meter is actually broken inside this tank, but because this is so easy to check just by looking, it's very hard to take this plastic off because it's one piece, and I just don't have time for that. There you can see the EFI throttle position sensor. The gear lever is this kind of totally non-adjustable, which is good. The old Polaris had adjustable this end, and it's very hard to adjust it because any adjustment error could cause the gearbox to be not in sync. But in this one, this gear sync is in this end already, so that it doesn't matter what's the adjustment in this is. That's very good. The rear brake is one issue. It seems to take air and you have to bleed it quite often nowadays. The bleed nipple is very odd size, maybe 6.5 millimeters or something like that. But those battery drills, so key holders, are the right size for that. So use a crescent wrench and that kind of stuff, and it holds fine. But I have changed it. Sometimes this can have that it's very stiff to change gears, and that is usually because the variator is keeping the transmission turning around. It's sort of slowly turning around, and when that happens, this could be stiff to steer and shift. And what I have done is change stiffer spring on that front variator, but it makes now the transmission doesn't turn at all. So if I start it up, and if it's in neutral, you can start it here, but if it's in gear like L, you have to press the brake to get it started. One issue is that if this Polaris doesn't idle, but it runs fine with throttle, you can open this one, and there's little like connectors here, because this has only one throttle cable, and if this one cable sticks, you could run into wall or have an accident. So there is this kind of connectors that if the cable now sticks and you release the throttle, those connectors close and it shuts the engine down. And that's why if that adjustment of this cable is wrong, those could get closed at idle and shut. You don't have any idle after that. So that's why it's good to, if it has no idle, this is the fix. I have separate video about that one also. You have to press this reverse overdrive when reversing. It will reverse, but only at rear wheel drive and only slow speed. It sort of starts to cut out when you drive faster, so you have to press this one to get full speed back and four-wheel drive back. It's sort of safety feature. There are sort of due connections with relays that you can overdrive it, but I haven't done that. Overall the plastic is quite soft. It's very pliable, very structurally sound. Usually these knobs get broken when you hit these, so I just put chip ties there. There's the original tap deal. But when you hit something, it sort of blows out the rivet, so that's one issue it has. This was the original winch that came with it. I just put Dynema rope on it, which is very good. You don't get any metal strips to your hands and you can handle this and it doesn't get tangled, mangled. So that's very nice upgrade is that rope. It has broken a couple of times. We just tie it up here. These are still the original tires. They don't wear much on this kind of off-roading driving. And what else? That's about it. I bought this 2012 and now it's 24, so 12 years. Very little problems and not much maintenance. Sometimes change the oil to all of those and then drive like 50 to 100 hours more. It's like a good tool. It's quite fuel thirsty compared to the new Polaris 570, so you can fill it up quite often. It eats fuel quite fast. But also it has quite good power and quite reliable engine. But that's all the information I remember now. If I would buy a second one, I would probably buy the Polaris 570 X2 with that short bed and 2-passenger model registered as a tractor. In Finland you can get that. This is not road legal and not registered, and those tractor versions are very good in Finland. You can drive on the road and you can pull trailer on the road and keep a plow on the road. And I have Polaris Glacier plow 150 centimeter, which is quite good. I used to do a lot of like snow work here at the log cabin, but nowadays when I have the tractor, I usually use the tractor because you are protected from the weather better in tractor. But that's it, Polaris 800. 12 years review.